Well, hello people, and welcome to City Skylines 2 for the very first time on the channel. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, as part of our early access, we are allowed a 30-minute session with you, taking you up to the 4th milestone in the game. I'm going to provide some commentary on things I've enjoyed up to this point, and some things that I've not enjoyed as well. Although do bear in mind we are currently playing on a beta build of Cities 2, so bugs and glitches may be present that probably won't be there in the final version. We are playing on Mountain Village, which is one of the maps that most appealed to me during the gameplay dev diary reveals, so this is where we will be building the city of New Frenwood. But otherwise, let's get stuck into it, shall we, and enjoy Cities Skylines 2 for the first time together. And before we do get started today guys, if you are missing any DLC or content creator packs for Cities 1 or would like to pre-order Cities 2, please do check the instant gaming link down below. It does help support the channel and you'll find yourself some really great deals for Steam, Xbox and PS4 codes, so please enjoy the link, help support the channel. So at this point in CS2 when we're recording this, I'm at about 40 hours played and it feels very different to CS1 in some bad ways and some good ways as well. And as we start the city here today, you'll notice there's no more 3-lane highways just poking out. It's kind of a smaller town vibe. There are some kind of couplet system stats that you can get involved with, kind of 2 highway roads if you like. But you'll see here, the road tools are astronomically better. You'll see a little bit of precision engineering mod kind of factored into how the roads kind of work now with their snapping options and different measurements alongside them. But road tools compared to vanilla CS1, huge improvement. You don't get any more of that ridiculous kind of, you know, this will not go here message, just so much better. The inbuilt parallel road tool is amazing, really seamless. You just set how long and how wide you want the parallel to be and it just does it. Really seamless, and yeah, can't champion the road tools enough. I think you guys are gonna really enjoy how the new road building works. The new roundabouts are really cool as well. There's kind of 4 different sizes, but you do need to actually unlock them in the development tree. You can still build your own custom roundabouts. It's the same process, you just equal the measurements on all 4 corners of the circle, if you like, for lack of a better way to say it. So now we're getting to placing our utilities, and you don't actually need to place a power plant. First of all, you can import power from the outside connection straight into the transformer, which saves you a ton of money on power plant upkeep. So definitely a advisable thing to do right at the start of the city, although you do have the cash to get it if you want to. We're also using the new groundwater pumping station, which is the more expensive of the options, but I wanted to try it and it looks pretty cool as we blend it into a field later on. And we're also putting a little sewer pump over here as well. The utility assets look a lot nicer, a lot more realistic than they do in CS1. And it's really cool that you can import power immediately from the start of the city. I really like that functionality. So we're going to start doing some zoning here in a second, and because the new zoning tiles now are 6 tiles deep, if you maximise that space and do what would essentially be a 12 deep suburb or a 12 deep block, the suburbs end up really wide. So in my experience, at least I'm playing in the 40 hours or so we've got into the game so far, I'm going to be sticking with mainly 4 deep zoning still like it was in CS1. And we're going to start doing some terraforming here as well. So this was really good. Terraforming is free and also available right from the start of the city now, which is an enormous help. And you're going to see a little trick here using a little elevated road to create a key wall, because there are no keys in the game. So you need to be a little bit creative with these elevated roads, and you're going to see a lot of the creators doing this. It just creates this little key wall against the water. Really nice way of creating keys, but again, a shame that there are no keys at all in base game CS2 as of yet. But you're going to see a lot of people doing this key wall stuff just to create a bit of a waterfront. So we come in here with our zonings. You can select your theme before you zone, which is really helpful. And you'll see how I'm sticking to those 4 deeps again. Specific zoning is always really helpful. And I think now because the detailing is not as present as it was in CS1, asset orientations and selections and positionings have never been more important. And you'll also see this crane animation. These construction cranes are everywhere for any type of building. Even small homes, they have these enormous construction cranes, which is a little jarring at first. I think I kind of prefer the scaffolding animation from CS1 for that. But we're going to get into some industry zoning now. You'll see just how the city starts to grow up. We're going to get our first Sims in here as well, Chloe Kensington. And the new sims are nice. There's a little bit of jank with their walking animation, but again, do bear in mind this is all recorded in quite a fragile beta, so expect things to improve between now and the 24th of October. But having much more fleshed out sims is cool, and I do like actually adding them to the watch list and kind of seeing what they get up to. It's fun, at least for the first part of the game. And then we're just going to start growing out the town here now. The start of a city isn't too dissimilar to CS1, you know, you want residential, commercial and industry just to get that foothold established. You'll see an example here of the new grid tool in use, which is super handy just for generating that suburban sprawl rather than having to manually design your own grids. Super handy and just easy to use, very intuitive again, just big thumbs up for all these new road tools. A lot of fun to play with. Now we'll hit our first milestone and we'll take a look at what we unlock. We get some loans and new map tiles. Medium density row housing unlocks very early, and you actually get quite a lot of demand for it quite early on in the city, which I'm not sure how I feel about that, because it kind of gives a, you know, it's a medium density vibe and you have to fulfill it. So we'll have a look at the tech tree as well, and I've found as I played that you don't always need to immediately spend all your development points. So I like to grab the roundabouts first, and I often have a lot of development points left over just in case I need to go and pick something up that I might need as I'm building. And see here we go back and upgrade the older roundabouts into the larger ones, and again super seamless, all the lanes just snap into it nice and easy. We'll also buy a new tile here as well. I absolutely love the new tile system, just being able to pick and choose smaller chunks of the map to unlock. It's a lot more freeing than the vanilla CS19 tiles. Again, huge thumbs up for the new tile system. We'll place a bit of landfill here as well that has one of these new durable, fillable mechanics like the specialized industry has, although we'll have a conversation about specialized industry a little bit later. Durable landfill, big thumbs up again, really cool mechanic, much better than just the ploppable vanilla CS1 landfills. And you can always extend these areas as well. So now we've come into place a cemetery, which is this big, huge park looking asset. And because of the way detailing works now in the game, we mentioned earlier in the video that you really have to factor in orientation and design these sorts of things now. So I'm saving this huge park space in the middle of New Fremwood to try and just get some form of detailing in the city, which we'll have a look at later on in the video as well. A little bit of medium density row housing going in here for the first time to help satisfy those demand bars, which you can see change pretty quickly down at the bottom there. Now you've got low, medium and high density residential all split out into their own demand bars. Another example here of how the roads just crisscross each other and seamlessly create junctions. Very, very cool. So we'll come to create our first ever pathways, which I've been dying to do. The new pathways are nice. They create pedestrian crossings as you arrive at the road, which is really cool for just creating, you know, proper park spaces. There's another example of it here. You see, you can also choose not to create the pedestrian crossing too. That's kind of dictated by how close you draw the pathway to the pavement as to how it creates the pedestrian crossing. So really cool that you have to do that. You don't have to do it with node controller or traffic manager anymore. And then just enjoying the flow of the city. I think in cities too, you know, I always champion the slower the better in CS1, and that's never been more true now in CS2 as well. Really slow down with your gameplay. Don't be rushing, wait for things to level up. You know, spend some time placing some trees, which do take a long time to grow, which I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that particular mechanic. I imagine one of the first mods on the workshop is going to be quicker tree growth or instant tree growth, if anything, because you do wait a long time for them. But now just playing with some more simple suburban layouts. We're going to draw some pathways up here as well. You'll see more examples of how they interact with the roads, creating pedestrian crossings. It's all very flexible again, you know, you're not seeing any more of that CS1. You cannot place this here or segment too short. Just all the networks, including the pathways, are so much more fluid now. And that brings us up to our second milestone. We'll have a look at the progression panel again. You get loan and taxation. At this point, we'll have a look at how we set our taxes in a second as well. Education also unlocks at the second milestone too. And you might be thinking, what about the economy, Egg? We're currently losing, what, 1,300 and something? Again, I always like an expensive start to the city, but because the milestones come quite quickly and you get enormous cash injections with them, you can pretty much spend as much as you like, and because you get XP for placing roads, The milestones are now actually tied into the literal physical size of your city, which is a lot better in my opinion, makes progression feel a lot more authentic. Another example here using the parallel road tool, look how seamless these junctions are. Almost looks node controlled, doesn't it? Again, love the the road tools. We'll not champion them enough in today's episode, throwing in a roundabout on more of the junctions there as well where it crisscrosses. You'll see here as well, got that little node just creating like a little fused node controller because it wasn't quite aligned. Incredibly cool. So now we're coming to set our taxes. So the new taxation system doesn't unlock until the second milestone, and you can't even adjust your service cost as well until the third milestone, I believe. But I'm going to increase my industry stuff here up to 18% on the base, and then actually increase vehicles to 24% because I don't really want vehicles being sold in the city. I want people to try and walk as much as possible, and next episode we'll get stuck into a bit more public transport. And then just adjusting the residential types. You will notice in today's video we do get a few warnings about how the rent is too high, but it's all just about finding a sweet spot between balancing out between different education levels. I don't particularly like how we tax people based on education level. That feels a little weird. That's not how it works in the real world, but I guess it's okay. And we're going to upgrade our cemetery here with a mausoleum, which just adds some extra value onto the cemetery asset itself. It also helps us start creating this big central park space here as well with the high school up at the head, which is that building that we placed over there as well. The new modular upgrade systems, in practice, when we first heard about how all the services are now modular, I was really excited for it, but having played with it, they all just kind of awkwardly snap onto the edge of the existing asset, which leads to us all having exactly the same high school campuses, universities, cemeteries. I'm a little bit disappointed to see the game move away from its kind of modular format it had established with DLCs like Campus and Industries, where you can have a selection of assets and place them within an area to build your own campus. I'm assuming we'll get some sort of DLC like that down the line with CS2, but of course you don't know. So now we're just drawing up some pathways here to try and bring a bit more life into this open park space. Bringing out junctions. You'll see now we come in and place different trees. There's actually Palavan pines back in the game as well. And then just scattering some bushes, but you know, you can see the difference here between the trees we just placed and the full-size trees over in the back of the field there. So they do take a long time to fully grow up, which makes detailing a little, just feels a bit odd because it's not how it's going to look, you know? So now we'll have a look at some of the medium density housing. So this is some of the tower blocks and apartments that are going to come in. And again, they're really nice. You do come across quite a lot of asset repetition, but CS1 Vanilla had that problem as well, so you are going to run into seeing quite a lot of the same asset, I think, until you can either get on the Steam Workshop or a first DLC or content creator pack arrives just to add a bit more variation into them. But there are some nice tower blocks. The assets are a lot more realistic, I think, than CS1. There's no more pink octopi around or silly rotating clown heads on the top of office buildings. They are a lot more realistic. Then feeding more pathways through, you'll see again how it tries to create that pedestrian crossing, but if you drag it a little further away then it just won't create it. Again, just a really seamless part of the road tools, really nice. And you'll see just as we zone up a bit of residential here, just how quickly that demand bar falls, so you don't need to mass zone at all. And that takes us up to our third milestone. We're placing the elementary school over here as well, just to keep those education levels going. All that stuff is exactly the same in CS1. You know, once you unlock the schools, you want to make sure you place them so you're satisfying that education demand. And then we're going to have a bit more medium density row housing on that side of that central park as well. And we also just upgraded our high school with the sports field, which is another example of that modular upgrade system coming into play. That again, that applies to pretty much all the service buildings have some kind of upgrade. We'll now see examples of upgrading roads or beautifying them, I guess, with grass lining or tree lining. So this is something that's really different. Essentially, all of your roads now have a base layer, and then you add grass lining or wide sidewalks or trees onto them. In all honesty, having played with this, I'm not a huge fan of it. I much prefer having separate road assets, but now even public transport lanes like a bus lane, you upgrade your base layer road with a bus lane rather than having a road with bus lanes, if that makes sense, like it is in Cities 1. It takes some getting used to. We'll also touch on some public transport stuff next episode that kind of works similarly to this. I mean, you can see it kind of functions, it removes the parking. And speaking of parking, I purposely chose to not unlock parking areas in the development tree just to see how the game handled it, and I haven't seen any kind of warnings or errors or, you know, something that would go wrong to indicate that I have to go and unlock parking as a function. Maybe that will change as we move into the mid-game, but we'll have to wait and see, I suppose. So now we'll come on to explore our first specialized industry in CS2. Now, this right here is a livestock farm, and I think specialized industry has regressed quite a lot. So we have a livestock farm, you get this cute little field, but then a load of cow sheds just spawn in the middle of it. That's not what a livestock farm looks like at all. Really weird. I think the specialized industry has probably had the biggest step back from CS1. I think the cornfields and the grain fields are really cool, but the livestock farming and the stone farming is particularly weird. Not a huge lover of it. We're going to draw in a stone quarry here now as well, because you do need quite a lot of stone for maintenance upkeep. If you don't have enough stone in, you're going to start getting a lot of collapsed buildings. So really important that you do draw it in. But again, you know, going from Cities 1's Industries DLC to this is a very jarring experience. There's no way near as much customization. But again, we're assuming Cities 2 is going to get an Industries DLC at some point, right? So it's probably going to be fixed then, but I'm really not a lover of the specialized industry in CS2. Another example here of these kind of node control automatic nodes. If you're not quite aligned, it will just fuse all together. It's incredibly cool. Right, now we'll have a look at adjusting a few of our service budgets that you can do at level 3. And again, just exactly the same as you would in CS1. Bring the budgets down because you're spending too much on it. Very similar process in CS2 as well. And you'll see after that we are slowly ticking away at that economy deficit, now down to, well, there you go, we just moved into the positive. So, you know, the economy in that start to the city, you don't need to worry about it. The milestones give you plenty of money, and it's pretty easy to earn as well once you can adjust your sliders. We're now into the plus 3,000s per hour. So grabbing some more tiles here to continue expansion, and that's what I mean, you know, when you need the extra bit of room, you've not got to wait for another huge milestone. You can just pick and choose your development tiles. It's a much better tile system in CS2 this time. And more examples of our parallel road tool. We're going to create a little bit of a cool junction here by ripping all this out, actually adding in a roundabout, and then splitting this one-way couplet system off into various different sort of configurations and sizes. I hope you're sort of enjoying the look at the road tools here. They're really good. Probably one of the biggest improvements the game has actually made to itself. I really enjoy using all these, and you'll see another example here of just bringing out that grid structure, how it all just snaps onto existing frames with no errors or warnings, and just really cool. Absolutely love the new road tools, and I will definitely get some highway stuff with them at some point too. So coming in now to place our first services, some pretty basic stuff, a firehouse near the industry and a police centre, a police station near your town, all pretty obvious stuff that we're all used to. And that does take us up to the 4th milestone, which is actually where we have to stop the video. We are allowed to cover the 4th milestone but not go any further past it. So we get low rent housing, bit of density, low density office, grain, transportation, forestry. All the specialized industries are really important for the new economy balance and all the resource production systems. It's quite important you keep on top of them. Like I mentioned, if you don't have enough stone, buildings will start to collapse because they use stone as part of their maintenance. So it's fun. It adds a new layer of gameplay into cities. I actually really like the new resource system. You'll see here we finally unlock park areas, so I'm straight into the park tab, unlocking large parks and sports parks. So we can continue to flesh out this big central space here where we've got our cemetery and the high school, and we'll just carry on drawing up these pathways into a nice big kind of detailed central park design. So coming on to the lack of detailing, it has regressed heavily. There are no props at all in the version of the game we are playing at the moment. I'm hoping that's going to change because it's a real big part of my kind of gameplay experience playing City Skylines. I like to detail small areas, and that option is pretty much now entirely gone from CS2. It's a real shame, but we can still place some of these parks around. They are nice. You've got a skate park now, a couple of basketball and tennis courts, there's an outdoor gym, You know, general kind of sports vibes. One thing I don't like about the parks compared to CS1 is that, you know how you could hook the pathways into like small playgrounds? You can't seem to do that anymore. You have to just draw the paths around them. It feels a little awkward sometimes, but again, hoping that might change or we get some. I'm hoping that CS continues its trend of adding a lot of new free stuff and free updates, because that really comes across as, you know, just nice, wholesome community appreciation when we get for stuff in free updates, like we get all those roads in CS1. So now we come to place at the grain farm, which is really cool. Love the grain fields, being able to customize these spaces. The game desperately needed this. And you'll see you just keep adding nodes up and against existing networks, frames, and it just takes the shape of whatever you want. I've drawn it out onto a little dirt road, so it's kind of like a little farm track that comes down onto this little area to fill it, and then we just get this big build area of farm field. And I am actually playing with natural disasters on. We get a wildfire here. I have actually been playing with natural disasters on for the whole time, but they don't tend to really have an impact, at least the forest fires I've seen. I've even had it right up next to the town and nothing really caught fire. And with the trees as well, you'll see as we place some oaks down here, the trees actually have a collision ring around them now, which makes creating very dense forest quite hard. I understand it's like this because obviously the tree has to grow and it will eventually fill that ring, but it's still very weird, takes a while to get used to. But a huge lover of the specialized grain field. That's a really nice improvement to the game, in my opinion. And you'll see here now, this is our first bit of high density, if you like. This is the low rent housing that's about to go in at these big tower blocks over here. And just fleshing out existing areas with parks and commercial zoning keeps satisfying those demands as and when you come into them, without trying to go too far, because we're not allowed to go past the 4th milestone in this particular video. And then just finishing off this big central green space with some repeated bush designs. The omission of a prop line tool is extremely disappointing. One of the most popular mods was a line tool in CS1, and really sad to see that it hasn't been brought to CS2's game engine. Same thing as well with Move It. There's no Move It function or like a cursor function, if you like. A real shame. Definitely one of the most demanded mods, I think, from CS1, and sad to see that it hasn't made it into the game. But you know, you can see people walking around the park here. It's pretty nice. I don't mind it at the end of the day. It is quite cute. So I also asked our patrons to submit a few questions as part of today's video, so I'm going to answer as many of these as I can within the time that we have left. Falco asks, what do you think is the proportion between building and managing the cities and Sims needs? As long as you keep it on top of your resources, like stone is required for building maintenance, then it kind of takes care of itself. You can focus on building a lot more, but if you do want to get involved in really micromanaging all your taxes and your resources, you can. Otherwise, it can be pretty autonomous as well. Daniel asks, what kind of PC do we need to run CS2? I believe the recommended spec is at least a 2080 Ti, and we've had mixed performance, but again, bear in mind we are in quite a fragile beta build at the minute, but it seems that CS2 is more intensive than CS1. Necessities asks, how does the CS2 launch base game feel for gameplay and build options compared to the endgame CS1? How does building interchanges and junctions compare to the first game? As I mentioned in today's video, the road tools are astronomically better than they are in CS1, so you're going to have a lot more flexibility with your interchanges and all your infrastructure. You're going to have a lot more fun building it and be able to do a lot more things. G. Nicole asks, does the start of the city feel rushed to get to milestones, or can you take your time so you don't need to go back and redo lots of stuff? Yeah, you can keep the city fairly small and just let them level up. That will get you over the milestone thresholds. But because you also get experience of building roads and expanding the physical size of your city, that tends to be a quicker way to hit those milestones, which is what I tend to do. You don't really need to build gravel roads at the start of the city anymore. Jono asks, what is the smallest elevation step and the smallest angle you can make intersections, ramps? In other words, are we going to miss Move It and Anarchy? The game does have a kind of Anarchy built in because it's just a lot more flexible in what it lets you place now. You are going to miss Move It, but I would expect Move It 2 to be out on the workshop on launch, so you probably won't miss it that much. I imagine Cuboid is probably going to have that ready pretty quickly. And yeah, you can do much smaller elevations now. I think it increases by like 1.5 and you can change it. It's a lot more flexible now in terms of elevation. You would have seen that in the clip where we were building that little waterfront key road. You can see the elevation changes there. Paul asks, how easy is the strength for terraforming? I found in CS1 I would always overdo it and make my city look rubbish. Terraforming tools are a lot better. You can set the size and the strength a lot more flexible now. You know, you have a number rather than just 3 strength bars like it is in CS1. Terraforming is a lot better. It's also available from the start of the city and it's free. Can you go over the options settings when starting a city? Over the natural disasters, can anything else be turned off? You can choose unlock all and unlimited money straight from the menu, but otherwise no, those are the only options. And can you build a roundabout without buying that particular advancement in the tech tree? Yes, you can. Exactly the same process as you would draw it in CS1. You just mimic the measurements on all 4 sides of it, and then you create the size of the roundabout that you want, but it won't look like the CS2 roundabouts with the filler, where all the lanes kind of snap into each other and it makes it look cool, like you saw earlier in the video. Brassack asks that in CS1 at the start there was a need to tinker with the budget levels until the small town you started to take hold. How much tinkering with the financial side did you feel you needed to do to stay in the black? You'd have seen it very briefly in today's video. We very slightly adjusted the service cost sliders at the 3rd milestone. That's all you need to do. That puts you into the positive. Again, there's no real challenge in the start of the city in terms of money. You'd have to try quite hard, I think, to go bankrupt because you get such huge cash injections with each milestone. Braden asks, are rails open before planes? Yes, they are in the development tech tree. Trains are the first option you can unlock, and then it goes to trams after that. Scope asks, does CS2 offer unlock all and unlimited money like CS1? Yes, it does. However, enabling those will disable your achievements. Zephyr Blaze asks, how do pedestrian roads work compared to CS1? Actually a lot better. You don't need to paint out pedestrian areas anymore. We will cover pedestrian roads in the next episode of this 3-part series, but pedestrian roads are included in the base game. Just one of them, but at least they're there. But you don't need to do pedestrian zones or service points anymore. That mechanic is gone. Brassack asks, are there any road types you think are missing, like 3+2 asymmetricals? I'm sure there is. There's a billion different types of road that we're probably going to get added in free updates, I imagine. Like I said earlier, I hope that they continue to do that because it's really comes across as kind of like community appreciation when we get little free assets sprinkled in an update like that. So yes, there are roads missing. Off the top of my head I can't think of any, but when they get added I'm sure I'll think, how did we not have this before? Ben asks, do you feel the start to building cities easier than it is in Cities 1? Yes, it is. There's definitely not as much of a monetary challenge just because of the way the new milestone progression works. Like, you know, you build out roads, you get XP for pretty much anything. Citizen happiness, increasing population, placing a road, placing a building, and just playing the game, you move much more quickly through the milestones because they're not tied to population anymore. The new milestone changes compared to CS1 are really good. I like the new progression system in the game. And Dashalon asks, how awesome is it having trams in the base game? Trams are cool. We haven't used them in today's episode, of course, because they're a little bit further down the line. We'll definitely set up a tram system in New Fremwood at some point. But very good. Trams are my favourite method, and we have played with them in another city, and they're cool. Yeah, it's nice to have them in the base game when we didn't have them in CS1. But otherwise, guys, that is going to do it for today. I would like to thank you all so much for watching. Apologies if this feels a little fast-paced and rushed, but to get to the 4th milestone and to talk about everything that we have done today in 30 minutes is a real challenge, so I hope it's been fun to see me play Cities 2 for the first time. I know a lot of you have been awaiting that, and like I said, this is a 3-part series, so there will be 2 more videos in New Fremwood covering up to a certain milestone. I'm not exactly sure of the release dates of those, but please do get in our Discord down below to find out when, and follow me on Twitter if you'd like to know when also. There are also links down to Instant Gaming below where you can pre-order Cities 2 for a fantastic price now. It does help support the channel, and yeah, great site. Please do check out Instant Gaming, goes a long way to helping me grow this community. But first hands-on impression with CS2, there's a lot of improvements and some regression here as well. We'll continue to see how the development goes between now and its eventual release on the 24th of October. Otherwise, let me know what you think of this gameplay. Did you enjoy New Fremwood? Is there anything that's concerned you, or anything that has got you really excited now you've finally seen me play it? And of course, don't forget to check out all the other creators' early access as well. Let's go see what everyone else has been up to. But otherwise, I would like to thank you all so much for watching, and as always, enjoy the rest of your day.